Welcome to our workshop. For this one, I invited the founder of Remotion, Jonny to teach us how we can use React.JS to render videos. Jonny is actually the person behind the GitHub Unwrapped for the previous 2 years, I think. And this year, I heard that you got contracted directly by GitHub for the 2024 version.
No, it's the 2023 version.
Oh, yeah.
So we need to ship it in about 2 months from now. But yeah, super happy that we get to do this. Actually, I just started this as a hobby project, and then I got noticed, and now we officially get contracted by GitHub to do a project for them. So that's an awesome thing that happened just by building. And today we are going to share a glimpse into this, right?
Yes, that's very exciting. I think the industry, the space of video and being able to edit and create videos programmatically is something that has a lot of potential in future. I see even a lot of startups that received investments or they even sold their projects, companies that were built on top of Remotion, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Since a while, I can now say that like companies raised like millions of dollars and betting on Remotion. No pressure for us, but that's awesome. And I see, especially now with the influx of AI startups, that video is a huge potential.
Yeah, I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to learn how we can use Remotion to actually build something similar to how GitHub Unwrapped is built. Can you quickly give us an idea of what exactly we're going to do today, and then we can just jump into the coding part?
Yes, so if everything works well at the end, we will have created a website, a Next.js app, where you will be able to enter your name and download your animated contribution graph. So a personalized animation that you can download as MP4 and post on your social media.
That sounds good. Shall we get started?
Then let's waste no time and do this. I will share my screen with you guys. All right, here we go in our terminal, and we start by typing in npm init video. So npm init video is how we initialize any new Remotion project, whether we just want to make a video or we want to make a whole app. Both is possible. Gonna call it contribution graph. And actually, I need to start over already again because I got the cached version. So
you need the latest.
Yeah. Since I already used Remotion before.
Did you publish some updates this morning?
I did, yeah. I published the latest update an hour ago. We ship like almost every day. Now, we need to decide between Next.js app directory or Next.js pages directory. What do you think we should go for?
Let's go with, I'm more comfortable with pages.
Me too. That's a safe bet, right?
Yeah. So I saw there are a lot of templates, a lot of getting started guides, and depending on what tools you want to use Remotion in, right?
Yeah, totally. So this is a SaaS template where you get some infrastructure for deploying a website, but there are also templates which just let you create the video without any server-side rendering to it. And there are like templates with Tailwind, and we have an empty template, some examples for text-to-speech, and that's approximately our lineup of templates.
So the Remotion, as I understand, it's supported on the web. I remember at Up.js, you were trying to do something for React Native as well. Do you have any updates there? Maybe we don't have to go into depth. I asked while waiting to install.
I created a proof of concept for React Native. For Remotion, the interest wasn't so big, which is why it's not continuing at the moment, but it could for sure get picked up again later.
Okay, so here we see the template.
Yes, here we have a template. We can start it right away. So actually we have 2 ways to start this, or like 2 things to start. One is our Next.js template. So as you can see here, we can enter some text, customize the text, and the video will live update as well. Say notjust.dev, the video will update. And
as easy as that, yeah?
Yeah, almost. There will be one more setup step afterwards. And then there's npm run Remotion. We actually get a timeline and some better controls to edit the video.
It's like a video editor like in your browser, right?
Yes, totally.
And here you can create the templates like manually, and after that use programmatic like fields to send data?
Yes, absolutely. So here we let me show you this in code. Here we have some React components that like render visuals. And then we just pass props to the component. In here, we just have a title, and this actually becomes the field, the input field that we display here. You can create very complex data types, not just with strings, but I think this is perfect for our use case today, where we just want to allow users to enter a username and get their animated contribution graph.
Sure.
And then in the end, we will want to render the video using Lambda. As you can see, this is not enabled out of the box because we need to connect our AWS account. And now this is the hardest part for me. I'm going to try to not leak my AWS credentials. I'm just going to copy them from another template I have. All right, so now I copied my environment variables. Let's see if Next.js did pick it up. Seems like we need to restart it. Another thing that I forget is
to deploy you need.
Yeah, once we have the credentials, we deploy a Lambda function and create an S3 bucket. And then we upload our React code to the S3 bucket.
Is this like a Remotion Lambda function or AWS Lambda function?
We Remotion say which code is running in the Lambda function, but you can completely self-host this on your own AWS. So we will not host it for you.
Okay, so at the moment, it's not going to be self-hosted.
Yes, and now it seems like we are able to trigger a video.
So now based on our properties and our composition, now our video is being rendered to an MP4, right?
Exactly.
And it's rendered in the cloud.
Yes, this is rendered on various AWS Lambda functions. The work gets split up. Seems like this is now done. And if we download the video, you can see that it was rendered.
Here we have an MP4 file rendered with React.JS, built with React.JS, let's see.
Exactly. And once the Lambda functions get warm, then the second render is usually a bit faster. So now in just a few seconds, you can create the next video.
Cool.
But is already it. I wouldn't change too much about this. I would maybe remove the information at the bottom because it's not really relevant.
Can you show us just a little bit like the project structure? Like what do we have here?
All right. Yes, that's a good idea. This is a Next.js project by nature. We have our next config.js and our pages directory, an API folder where we have two endpoints. One is the progress endpoint. I'm going to send mode so that you can see it a bit better. We can poll the progress, and then we also have an endpoint to invoke the render. In here, the Next.js API route is actually also a Lambda function. This Lambda function will then call the Remotion Lambda function. We have a few settings here that we can specify. We could make the Lambda function more powerful. We could render the video in a different codec. We could even render it as a GIF or GIF. And yeah, so that is that.
Okay, perfect. Looks good.
Then we have a regular Next.js app where I'm rendering the Remotion player.
That's what I was interested in. The player.
Yeah, so that is something that just import from our npm package Remotion player. We have a few things we can set here. We define a pretty much regular React component. So as you can see, we use CSS here. We use a bunch of SVG masks here.
This is the content inside the video, like that you want to render, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And even the template itself will like live freeload because it's just a regular Next.js app. If you save something here, the video will keep playing and update. We set a duration. We set a frame rate, 30 FPS. I think is a good choice here. And we decide the dimensions of the video. Here I've set it to 720p. And it doesn't mean that the player has to be the same size. We can make it bigger or smaller. This is just the canvas that we are using, and then it gets scaled up and down. And then, of course, the video will be full resolution. Just like with the regular HTML5 video tag, we can either display controls or we can display no controls. Same with the autoplay and the loop props, which are inspired by the HTML5 video tag. Then we have some render controls here at the bottom. In this case, just an input where we render video and call the endpoint. Now we have a public folder as well. This public folder can be read from the Next.js app as well as from Remotion. I think in this case, we don't use it at all though. Then here we have a Remotion folder, and this is kind of the Remotion app embedded into the Next.js app. Because we have these files, we can start this studio thing that we have here. And in here we have an index file where we register what we have. Here we have registered 2 compositions. One is called myComp, and the other is just the Next logo. This one we don't really need. We could delete this, but by defining a composition, we get to see it here in the left sidebar and only work on this component. And as you can see, here are some fine details in this component. So this is like a nice way to focus on one component at a time, and you can still embed it regularly into the master component. So let's get started actually modifying this template, I would say.
Let's go.
And for that, we currently here have a title. I think we can rename this to username, and I'm going to enter my own. And it now appears. In this case, we don't actually want it to appear. We can also remove this Next logo now, maybe also from here.
Delete the component. Okay.
Let's delete everything and create it from scratch. Yes, perfect. So we start with an empty component. I'm going to leave this implemented. So this is the use current frame hook from Remotion. And you will see that if I just render an H1, it always returns the current time. And we just do all of our animations we do based off of this use current frame hook. So you will use it in almost every Remotion component.
Okay, so the way I understand it, like very, very simply, is this main component. This is our main composition. It's our video where it starts. Let's say the entry point of our video. And this component will be re-rendered for every frame. And during a frame, you decide how you want your component to look like, what to render. And slowly moving objects around based on how many frames have passed, you get like the smooth animations, right?
That's exactly the concept. We just do a bunch of free renders up to 30 times a second if our component is fast enough. And that way we create an animation. Cool. So as a next step, let's try to fetch our GitHub contribution graphs. And I do this using the GitHub GraphQL Explorer. A really nice tool for exploring the GitHub API, in my opinion. Here we go. So you have to sign in because it will actually use production data, and you can also modify data from here. So with this default query, I can query my own username. And now there should be a way where I can, with this autocomplete, I can figure out what data there is in the GitHub graph. So we have a user query, okay, user. And then we have to pass in the username or the login. I'm gonna for now pass in my own. And from here, we get the contributions calendar. And here we could, for example, get the amount of total contributions. Here we go. Let's copy paste this now.
Should it be inside the calendar?
Yes, indeed. So now we get the weeks and
how many contributions.
Yes.
That was easy to get data.
That is pretty easy to get the data. So back in our contribution graph project, we now just like in a regular React app. And I think this is why people like it, is that they don't have to learn so many new things. We just call fetch. So I copied this from our actual GitHub Unwrapped project, which by the way is also open source. And instead of making it a use effect, let's make it a method, call it fetch data, use callback, make it asynchronous. Now here we authenticate, and this is what I've been
hiding from you.
And now we need to build this query.
So below, Jonny just added a simple fetch API call to get data from GitHub so that we can dynamically fetch the data about a user from GitHub. Now we are building the query. Basically, he's copying it from what he built in the visual interface, and we'll just change the dynamic username instead of a hard-coded one.
Exactly. Here, maybe I should add a bit of a security notice, since this is a speed run of building a small GitHub Unwrapped. I'm here putting my GitHub authentication token in the front end. What would be even better, if you don't want your GitHub account compromised is if you make a Next.js API endpoint and execute the queries from there and then fetch it from here instead. But I think this is a bit boring and we can hack it like this. So now setting it up so that when we are changing our username, that it will refetch it. So let's make a use effect. And if the username is changing, we fetch the data. Let's also make a state.
This is for the data that we will get back from as a response.
Yes, exactly. So probably need to parse this JSON. Excellent. So let's see if it works by printing out the data that we have. If we have some data.
Okay.
Here we go.
Did you have a state variable for the username?
The username.
Oh, username was coming from a prop.
It is coming from a prop. So here in our Remotion root file, here I've extracted this for cleanliness into a separate file. But here I've specified the username. Oh, and there's also a feature in the Remotion Studio actually that allows us to modify stuff from here. So maybe you guys know sort schemas. Yeah. But we support sort schemas. I can add the sort schema also here.
And based on the schema, you'll be able to edit your input parameters from the dashboard, from visually.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so cool. That basically empowers any non-technical person to be able to use Remotion, because you as a developer can have this schema and they can just use the visual interface to generate hundreds of videos a day.
That's exactly the point, and we are also pushing into this direction. So here we have now a username. I'm gonna add my friend William Candillion here, and now we can see his contributions.
Nice.
And well, you can also render here visually using this button, and you can deploy the whole studio to like a VPS and then send the URL to somebody, and they will be able to operate this interface without having to do any coding at all. So that's also pretty cool. Now,
what do we do with this data?
Now, what do we do with this data? Excellent question. So I guess, first of all, let's explore it a bit closer. What we have. So we have a user object, which has a contribution collections object. And then in here, we have the weeks. Now the weeks, it seems like there are just 7 days in it and the amount of contributions. I assume this weeks array has 52 objects, which again has each 7 contribution days in it. So let's try to loop over this, and for shortcutting it, I'm also not going to type the data here, so wish me luck. So data user dot contributions collection, and wow, I'm actually getting some help here as it seems.
Let's go pilot. So now we are inside the week.
Okay, so for each week dot contribution day.
Now inside every week, we are mapping over the days, which should be 7 separate objects inside our array, and they will have the date and also the contribution count, specifying how many contribution did that user had on that specific day.
That is completely correct in theory, and now I just need to figure out why it doesn't work.
Probably it can be data.data, yeah, and then user.
Thank you. That's it. And now we have all the dates in our video. I think this is a good point to do a bit of cleanup. First of all, there's one more thing that we need to do in Remotion. Remotion would just start rendering the video and it wouldn't know once you have finished loading data. So we need to tell Remotion once we have finished loading all the data, and only then Remotion will start rendering the video. So this is something that you would only notice once you would render out the video, but nonetheless, I want to cover it in here for correctness. So how we do that is we call a function called delay render. We import that from Remotion. When we mount the component, delay the render of our video. Then once we have fetched the data, we call continue render and pass in a reference.
But where do we delay the render? Oh, we call it with use state, like when it mounts, right?
Exactly. This is a bit of a syntactic sugar for just calling it once the component mounts.
So yeah, it's just like wait until all the data is here and only then start rendering the video, right?
That's exactly right. Okay. Otherwise, maybe you would see something where like the first 1 or 2 seconds are like just a white canvas and then you get it. But this way it is frame perfect. Now,
Nice.
I think I want to create a nice type for it. GitHub response. And by the way, if you work with GitHub, this is really important. You need to write the H always in uppercase. Otherwise, they will scold you.
That's you found out through some contract.
Just in case you ever get into the situation. Okay, weeks. Now let's make a type week. And a week has contribution days. And seems like that's already it.
Yeah, looks good. That's the fastest types that I saw being written.
Right? Not bad. GitHub Copilot helped me a lot here, of course. And of course, like we always do in React, we give everything proper keys when we are using .map. Now we can make another component. Let's call it tile.
So for a visual representation, after writing it, can you show us the GitHub contribution graph, just for us to have in mind like what we're trying to do here?
Absolutely. So this is what a GitHub profile looks like, and we have this infamous graph amongst coders.
Yours look very well. Like, don't even try to check mine. Mine is always like on Thursday is green because I prepare for the Friday's live stream, and maybe on Friday.
Yeah, so people nowadays ask for a lot of features and bug fixes, so they really keep my contribution graph green.
Nice. Okay, that's good. Like to have in mind. And now a tile, as I understand, is going to be one small square that represents one day, and it will have a different hue of green, or the different intensity of green based on how much contribution did you do that day. So hopefully there will be less white tiles and more green tiles. So now, as I can see, you changed in the composition to render the tile for every day, and probably we need to send some data there, right?
That's right. So
here we have
to get started, I'm just gonna render some very green tiles, and well, I guess we should maybe make this a row. Align them. All the weeks are in a row.
Yep.
So display flex direction row. Did I do it correctly? We have 7 rows. So maybe this needs to be a column. Oh, yes.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
Added to the outer container. Now we have all the tiles. I'm now taking a bit away from the margin and
maybe even the size.
Yes, I think so too. Let's see how small we need to make it. So we need to make it 20 pixels tall in order for everything to fit.
Let's add some border radius, please.
I agree. Border radius is really, really urgent. Maybe what's even more urgent is that we center it. I will do both of these things right now. So I'm using this.
Okay, here we have it.
And border radius. Maybe add some margin back again if we can afford it. We need some spacing in there.
I think it looks good.
Interesting. Now there's like some really interesting pattern.
Yeah.
Optical illusion.
Yeah, if you look too much, you see the dots.
Let's compare it with this. Seems like they make the dots even a bit smaller. Let's say 3.5 maybe. I think they also put like a border of like a grayish border. Here we go. Looks all right to me. The day with the least contributions should be white or gray, whereas the day with the most contributions should be super green. Let's just pick some colors from here. A super green day. Let's just call it super green. Slightly green. I guess this is what they use for this. And then maybe also the gray. For if you have taken a day off, fair. Take some days off as well, even if they are not gray days. Maybe you take a day off.
Just do a small change and push it to GitHub.
Right. Something is still bothering me, I must say. And I just figured it out. Now the squares are like equally spaced horizontally and vertically. I wonder what that is about.
Maybe we should try the spacing with gap.
Yeah, good idea. I've now already started trying to make it some flex columns, but if that wasn't working, I would have done that. Okay, interesting. I think that is better. Looks more like it should let's take a prop. Let's call it amount of green. Then we need to do some math on stream. Let's say amount of green. If it's 0, then we show gray for now. And otherwise it is super green. And then how to do the shades? There's a cool way to do that. I'm going to show you afterwards. First, I think we need to get the highest amount of contributions in a day. Const highest amount of contributions in a day equals math max. Okay, so actually a bit wrong. I've just calculated the highest amount of contributions in a week. So
but you need for the whole year.
Exactly. So for this, we need to flat the array. I'm really glad that we typed this now.
Yeah.
So we can do data.user.contributions collections.calendar.weeks, map over the weeks, w.contribution days.map d.contribution count.
People will have to pause this part and try to understand everything, but yeah, hopefully they will manage to do it. Jonny simply put all the contribution count in one long array of numbers.
Exactly. And now we figure out what is the highest amount of contributions that I did in a day. And I'm curious myself what it is. It seems to be 102 commits in a day.
That's a lot. That's real data from Jonny's GitHub.
That must have been a long day. I would say amount of green, let's just take the amount of contributions on that day and divide it by the highest amount of contributions.
So it's going to be a value from 0 to 1, where 1 is maximum and 0 is nothing.
Exactly. For now, I've just made it so that every day I coded is gray and the other one is green. Now here comes something cool. We now know that this amount of green number is a number between 0 and 1. It is just one commit, and you want it to be the lightest green, you want it to be slightly green, otherwise you want it to be super green. But if you have, for example, coded 50 commits in a day and your maximum is 100, then you want it to be a color in between. For this, we ship a function called interpolate colors. Here we need to pass some parameters. The first one is amount of green. This is the value that we want to interpolate. Usually want to animate it. In here, we don't really animate it, but we calculate the color. And now we need to specify here what is the minimum and the maximum value that amount of green can be. So we said it's 0 between 1. We could have also not divided it by the maximum amount of contributors, and then it would be between 0 and 121. Mm-hmm. But in visual coding, you will realize it is often beneficial to normalize values to be between 0 and 1. And now, if we are at 0, it is slightly green, otherwise it is super green. And Here we have our contribution graph.
That's cool.
Let's compare it to GitHub's one. I must admit theirs is a bit more vibrant. They maybe have a better way of doing this. But I guess now we are going much into the detail.
Yeah, it does its job.
Definitely.
That's so cool. To be honest, when you told me about the plan, I was thinking that we're going to use a library for this kind of graph. But then when you put it together, like, it's so simple, like you don't need any library. It's just a couple of boxes, a couple of tiles that you render. So yeah, pretty impressive so far. What would be the next steps?
All right. Not that much more to do. Here we see we have a bit of a problem where the year is not equally dividable into weeks of 7 days. So actually what is going to solve this is I'm just going to wrap the whole thing in another div.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, I was too excited. I thought this would work, but it doesn't. Here we go.
Yes.
So here I just created another row, and this time did not center the things, which means everything is aligned to the top left by default, but this div itself is still centered in the canvas.
Perfect. Looks awesome.
Now, what we could do is maybe at the top display the username and the contribution count. And now we can make this column actually, I'm going to do sans serif, but we also have like a Google Fonts package that actually, if I'm talking about it, I can also show it to you. So I have like this load font thing where you can load any Google font, and I can also get the font family. Here I've chosen Inter. Now I can use the shorthand here to render it into Inter. Let's bump up the font size a bit, make it bold, not by that much. All right. Maybe also have the contribution day.
The total amount of contribution?
Total amount of contributions, yes.
I think we have it in the data, but yeah, you can also calculate it.
Oh yeah, right. That would have been easier. Already too late and used a reducer.
Yes, perfect. So we have
something like that. Of course, you can design it better. Use the full power of CSS to your advantages, but that is good. Now we can animate everything, I would say.
Let's animate everything.
So we have things that we have two main animation techniques, I would say. And also I could make more components out of this, then it would be a bit more cleaner, but it would maybe be a bit boring. So I'm going to make a mess now. So let's say the username should fade in. For that, we could in general just say, hey, the higher the frame, the higher the opacity. So we could say frame equals 10. Then on the first frame, it's going to be, or like frame divided by 30. Then maybe you see it a bit better.
Opacity, yep.
You should see we have fade in effect.
Okay.
But with this division, this is a bit annoying to work with if you then only want to start animating it later into the video. So this is what the interpolate function is for. Similar to interpolate colors, actually exactly the same, except that here we interpolate numbers, not colors. Say what we want to interpolate. We say the minimum and maximum amount that it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And here, of course, the frame can be bigger than 30, but we say the opacity only goes to 1. Actually, it can still happen that the frame is 60 and then the opacity becomes 2, which you will not notice. But then if you have like transformations like scale, you will want to add this as well. Extrapolate, clamp, and then clean fade in effect. I guess you could also do like a scale effect. And now I scale in my username.
Quite simple.
I think for the contributions, we just do the same. And we could either change the values here, but also here, subtract something from here.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
For example, if I want to, let's say the contribution to start animating in only after the username finished, can I have 3 numbers in the interpolation range to have 0, 30, 60, and then the output to be 0, 0, 1? Will that work?
Yes, that's also what you can do. So let's do exactly that.
With this idea is like from 0 to 30, don't do anything, but from 30 to 60, animate in.
Yes. And I think this is then kind of like implied. If it goes from 0 to 0, I don't need this keyframe. If it goes from 0 to 0, I don't need this keyframe. I can just start from here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that also makes sense. Do you have to clamp it?
Yes, indeed. So now the opacity is negative when the frame is below 30. So
okay,
we also clamp it here to make it clean. Again, if you would use a scale, and you have a negative scale, the item would get bigger again and start looking mirrored. So certainly good that we clamp this. Nice. So we have 2 fade-ins.
Yeah, I understood Remotion.
Let's go.
And I'm already thinking about all the ideas that I could do with it. I remember, like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that, I was doing some creative coding. I was working in a company that was doing things like that. And I was experimenting with different algorithms just to create shapes and things on the screen programmatically, like all of these like binary trees, that based on that. So I remember back those days and excited. Maybe I will try to do something with Remotion in that direction.
Yeah, if you have ideas that you want to implement, I have many of them as well, and way too few time.
I will ask a couple of ideas from you at the end of a workshop, so we can continue.
Definitely. Okay, so interpolation, we did that twice now. Now let's look into spring animations. I'm gonna call this maybe like spr. Call a function called spring. In here, I need to pass in the frame as well as...
Oh, that's nice. You don't have to send the frame. You can use a hook right away in the component. Cool.
Yes. You could also send the frame. That would also work. And especially when you time shift, and then some people then have like 2 types of frames. One is like the relative frame because they time shifted, and one is the absolute frame. It's up to you to do good and evil. You can do everything. Just to visualize how this is going to be, I'm going to spring editor.vercel app. This is something that I'm working on, and then you can just see like the curve of the spring animation, and you can see that with the default values we have a bit of a bounce in here. Remove the bounce if we change this damping parameter a bit. And now it's like more natural, I would say, but less crazy. And the spring function is just taken from reanimated. Exact same parameters you can also put in there.
So we're going to use the spring animation for the tile. What will we animate? The position? Or what do you think? For scale?
I was thinking of the scale.
Okay.
But we could also do the position. We can even try out multiple things and see what we like most.
Okay. Yeah. Let's try.
We can even add another checkbox. Do you want scale or position? Let's start with scale now, I would say. Here in this config, I can put in the physical properties. We now set damping 11, which I think it's almost default, but just to show you that you can configure it. I just a scale transform. So scale is now a CSS property. And here you can pass in a number. Why do I cast it to a string? It's actually a bug in React. And I fixed that bug for them. But it's been like since that and no new version of React came out. So in future, you will be able to just pass in string. But right now you have to cast it to a string for it to work. And we have a bunch of tiles jumping. Now, let's give it some delay.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well.
So for that, we have some more things we can do here in the spring. We could like stretch the spring so that it has an arbitrary duration. That is useful because a spring does not have any duration by default, or like you do not give it the duration, you give it physical properties, unlike an interpolation. But here we're just going to use the delay property. So delay, and that then becomes a shorthand, so just delay. So that's what's going on here. Going back to the main component, we are setting the delay to 60 so that all the things are coming in after another. Okay, now we get that. This should be fun. We are going to offset the delay for each tile so that they will not come in all at once.
But in a wave.
In a wave, yes. So here we can, of course, just take the index when we use that, and then within a week, it should come in a wave.
From top to bottom now. Yeah. Wow.
From top to bottom now. Not bad. And then we can also
take the week index.
Take the week and then
multiply by 7. Yep.
Look at that.
Let's go.
Hey. It's almost a bit too slow.
Yeah. Divided by something.
So day duration, let's say 0.2. And now I need to do something. Oh, yeah. I think.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Nice.
Super nice. Lola
like
wave like in a football stadium.
Yeah. I was so focused on seeing it reach the end. So cool. Does it also have like from top to bottom? Yeah. We can see like if we stop, we see that on the top, they are bigger than on the bottom. Yeah.
Indeed. Maybe we can even make it a bit crazier because...
It's so crazy.
So this is really fun to play around with. Let's give it a bit more bounce and then reduce the duration a bit. See what we get now.
Whoa.
Wow. Okay.
Nice.
Not bad. I actually like this.
Yeah, that's so cool. Now this is the Remotion view. Will it show us how we can do the same as we had in the template where we had like a page with an input and after that a rendered player, right?
Yes. So I need to restart the app and seems like here we have an exception before the data is being fetched. I see. So
do you think that the environment variable is not public and Next.js?
That's exactly it. Remotion and Next.js, they have a different way of making environment variables available to the front end. By default, it's not just like your whole environment is available in the browser. That would be stupid. So you can prefix a variable with Remotion _ to make it public to the browser, and Next uses Next _ public _ And I've just used the Remotion so far. This is good. This tells us that we messed up and that we are about to leak our credentials. Actually, I'm just going to say API/GitHub, and I'm going to make a new backend endpoint. Because if we get this out of the way, we can actually put it live without me having to fear for my account.
So now what you're doing is you're moving the interaction between your application and GitHub to a backend function in the API folder of Next.js. So the difference is that before we were querying GitHub data from the client side, and for that you need to expose your API key in the client side, which is no bueno. And now Jonny is moving it on the backend side. He can safely use his GitHub API key there. And from the front-end side, we simply call our endpoint that is generated here inside Next.js API folder. And it will simply pass down the data that it receives.
That's right. So let's hope I did it right. Maybe request.query, or we can say, we can even do some validation if request.query.username is not a string, then we throw an error. Also, this will be a GET request actually.
Mm-hmm.
And
now you're gonna try our API endpoint
/API/GitHub and be
ring
invalid type, whatever that means. Kind of curious where this message comes from. Just gonna do the good old console.log.
Yes.
And doesn't seem to get logged. Oh, okay. I did something fancy here.
Oh.
I'm validating this with SOD. So that you can only send the actual input props. This is truly too fancy for now. And
the good old function.
We resort back to default. It does not seem to like it, but I think
maybe there is a missing closing.
Is it like this? Like incoming message? Could be something like this. Let's see what's going on. I see. So we need to actually return something.
Here it
now
is.
Let's gonna try it with William. I see. So
yeah.
The login is still me because I am the user who did the credentials. But it should actually work. And say whatever you want about Next.js and how complicated it has become, but this is like super nice. Except I need to use tsignore here because I'm too lazy to look up now how to properly type this. Never mind me. Okay, going back to the main component, let's finish this now.
Now from the front-end side, from the Next.js, we're not interacting with GitHub directly. We're interacting with the API endpoint that Jonny just created. And in this situation, we don't need any authorization headers. I can simply request it, and all the job is going to be done by the backend.
That's right. Also a bit sketchy, of course. Now it doesn't work anymore in the studio because it's hosted on a different domain. The proper way to do this would be to, I don't know, do an if statement and handle it that way. Yeah, you need to engineer some type of solution. But for now, I'm just going to make it so that we're only going to work on the Next.js app anymore. And now let's see what data we are fetching. Okay, so our GitHub username is undefined. That kind of makes sense.
So now we're going to the homepage of our Next.js application where we kind of render the user-facing application, let's say, where you'll be able to insert your username. It's going to render the player based on the data that it will fetch from your username, from your GitHub.
That's right. Let me also quickly check if TypeScript is still happy. It is. So maybe now. Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
Here we go. So now also in the website, let's maybe make it so that it doesn't crash when
we change the input too much.
When we are entering an invalid username, yeah. Here we go.
Hey, let's go. So nice.
So good, right?
Yeah.
Now, let me push this.
Let's do it.
Okay. Add existing repository, contribution graph, quick check. Create in the live stream of notjust.dev. Putting it live to the world. I'm going to deploy this. And
yeah, if you are not familiar using Vercel, you can very, very easily deploy a Next.js application. You just simply connect it with the GitHub repository. That's what Jonny is doing right now. And it will go ahead and deploy your project so anyone can join it for URL.
That's right. And now I just filled in my .env. As a reminder here, I put my AWS credentials in here. This step is maybe boring and takes like 10 minutes, but it's very well documented on the Remotion page.
To be able to not only view the video in the player, but also render it and download.
Exactly. This is a nice thing that's only available in our Next.js template. Whenever you deploy to Vercel, we will also redeploy the Lambda function and your site. And here maybe I should have given the site a different name as well, contributor graph, because otherwise I might actually override another site. It's not a problem. Like I might overwrite another video.
Hey, we see.
Let's hope everything works as I intended to.
Yeah, I see it. Yes, let's go.
Yeah, we're live. And now, I mean, this can always go wrong. So we rendered the video now. Let's see if it works. I mean, certainly possible that we did make a mistake. Unexpected token is not valid JSON. I wonder what that could be. Let's just try again.
No, it starts rendering, right?
It does indeed. Might actually do.
And after that, after some time, stops.
So here I can just log the error. I'm not able to click the button because the zoom overlay.
This is the progress.
I see. So, I see. We are deploying the Remotion site, and even though it is calling to Vercel, we may not do this. Let me show you the fix, because we can actually fix this. So if I just add my domain here, then it will work. Actually, it might not, because now we have a course issue. And I did not implement course. This can also belongs to every workshop.
This is, for the API.
I mean, not even this is guaranteed to work. I mean, nowadays for course, you have to like put in all the headers that you're going to use. Bit of a pain.
So if something is not working, it's either cache or course.
That's right. We give it a redeploy. And if this is not going to work, we do have a nuclear option, because we want Remotion to be fun, and not all the rules that apply in normal web development need to apply in Remotion as well. So if you want to disable course, you may actually do so in Remotion. Look at this, Chromium options, disable web security, true, all course problems are solved.
That's a backdoor.
Yeah, because you're spinning up your own browser. And course is mainly a protection for you as the user, so you don't get hacked. But if you're rendering a video in a headless browser, then you should have the right to not use protection.
That is about the Lambda function, right? That renders it.
Yes.
You are, in a way, behind the scenes, when rendering a video, you are spinning up a browser, a headless browser. You're rendering the React.JS Remotion application, and based on that, like taking all the frames and creating the video.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So now we are creating a bunch of screenshots. I mean, might be around 200 screenshots, and encoding them into an MP4 video.
Come on, let's go.
Okay, it worked, I think. Hey, it used the right data.
Okay, that's impressive.
I did it on localhost. Let's see if it also works in production, but I believe it does. Yes, and now that the lambdas are warm, the export is also way faster now. Here we go.
Nice, let's go.
So that was a lot of fun, and makes me happy. We did something from start to end. We shipped something, contribution graph red.vercel.app. You may check it out, as well as on my GitHub.
I'm going to try to leave all the links in the link in the description below.
I will maybe not leave it up forever, just in case somebody is now trying to like render 10,000 videos to rack up my bill. But I will for sure leave the source code up for you guys to try it and deploy to your own Vercel. Vercel free plan should be fine. AWS Lambda, you need to connect your credit card, because you need some powerful machinery up there.
Yeah, that is really impressive. Very, very easy and very exciting, like what you can do here. I think that Remotion really opens up the door for so many opportunities, so many creative projects that otherwise wouldn't be possible to create programmatically videos. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what you're going to do for the GitHub Unwrapped this year. Can you tell us something about that? Do you have already some plans?
Yes, absolutely. So it's going to be the same idea, but just much, much better executed. And for that, this year, we are hiring some really talented designers, illustrators, animators, coders, maybe sound designers, whatever it takes. We just want to make it super nice. We are going with a space team.
Nice. It's cool. All right. So if anyone is interested in contributing to what Jonny is doing, make sure to reach out to him. I'm going to leave all the links in the description below. And at the end, I want to ask you, what kind of ideas do you think would work really well of products, of maybe SaaS businesses that can be built on top of Remotion?
So what we see being successful right now is like this type of generators where you can just type in text and it will convert it into nice promo videos, maybe allow a user to upload a video and automatically subtitle it for them.
That's powerful. Subtitling.
Maybe create a scene with generative AI and then use Remotion to post-process it by adding captions, by adding a text-to-speech. This area is very, very popular right now.
Yeah, that's something that I think there will be a lot of opportunities there. A lot of social media companies are doubling down on video right now. Video content is everywhere. Creators all out there are creating like short form videos, and any tool that would help them, would speed up the content producing process would be something helpful, and you could build a business out of it.
Absolutely. A lot of indie hackers are embracing Remotion now, building something with it, which I think is really cool, especially because it's something that you could conceivably create on your own. We just did something in a short amount of time. And then we also root for you to hopefully make some money off your own products. And we promote you. And we now, after 2 years, see the first couple of success stories in that regard, which makes me really happy because I also come from that scene.
All right. Thank you very much for this tutorial. I hope it will generate ideas for you guys. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. And thank you very much, Jonny, for doing it.
Very happy to do so and hope to see you again soon.